Welcome back, and thanks for joining us for this final episode of the series. Last time we explored trust, how empathy, presence, and reliability create long-term relationships in this business. Today we're closing things out with something just as important, support and community. Because even with all the right skills, the right mindset, and the right habits, none of us succeed alone. So, when you're looking at agents who grow, who stay, and who eventually thrive, what role does support play in their success?
Support plays a significant role. And I just think back to some of the conversation that we've had and my reference to biology, and I'll do the same here where, we are a social being and we want to be in a community, and what support allows is for individuals to have a potential champion behind them when they're in some challenging situations. It's just that, you can't do it alone. You need a village to help raise a child, and in this very similar situation here where you would need a support system. And I think that there are many individuals who will struggle in this industry and in other industries as well if they do not have a good support system. So I think it's fundamental to agents succeeding.
Yeah. A lot of, new agents feel like they have to figure it all out themselves. Why do you think so many people, so many of those agents fall into that, lone agent mindset?
Again, biology. And what I would say is we don't want to expose our weaknesses. And, the brain is wired. We're wired so that we want to make sure that we're not exposing those weaknesses, because back in the period where it was life and death, those who are weak were typically eaten by the predators. So very similarly, you get that feeling of, I can't expose any of my weakness, because if so, then they will know that I'm not as good as, and that prevents people from, putting themselves out there to get support. And I think it's one of those things that when you do, and you get the support, it just makes the entire experience much more effective, efficient, and puts you in a position where you're likely to succeed. I think it's critically important.
You have worked closely with many teams. What differences do you see between agents who, plug into community versus those who don't do that?
Trying to do it alone, if you do not, plug into a community, you are going to struggle. And it's not to say that others won't struggle, but you're likely to struggle more. You're likely to take a much longer time to get efficient and become proficient, because the community will help you see some of the pitfalls. The community will be able to help, like I said, think about if you are, I'll just say, an athlete, and you are running some race. And as an athlete, I remember I used to run the 400 meters, and the last 100 meter or 400 meter race is just painful, right? And if you have a bunch of fans versus not having fans on that last straightaway, there's a complete difference between how you feel and what you are likely then to put out, right? So the community is that the fans on that last straightaway, where if you have them in your corner, there are times where you're going to be struggling, where you're going to be down, and you may need that community to lift you up. So I see folks, if they try to do it alone, they may eventually get there. It's going to take them longer. They're going to struggle more. It's likely they're going to spend more. They're going to experience things that if they had the community where the community is sharing information about things that they would be able to avoid, they're going to experience some of these things.
Let's talk about mentorship specifically. What does a good mentor provide for a new agent?
I think it is fundamental first to helping develop personally and professionally. I've had mentors, and I still do, officially and unofficially. When I was with IBM, there is an individual, Gary Wright, who has just been was a long-term mentor of mine, probably 12 to 15 years. Wow. And what Gary provided for me was an individual who had experiences, who had knowledge, who then shared those with me so that I can understand what is likely, what is possible. An individual who would listen and understand some of the challenges that I was going through, who would then challenge me to think of ways that I could address. He also recommended, suggested, as well as, connected me with others so that I could be exposed to more experiences. So I give that example to also answer the question as to what a mentor does. For me, critically important for your development and the speed at which it happens. And I would say that you should have mentors across, whether it's professional, personal. It doesn't necessarily need to be someone in your space, because others can give you other perspectives, but critically important.
Yeah. For agents who maybe don't feel like they have a strong support system right now, where can they start? What's the first step in building that support around them?
Get out of your head. I understand there is that I don't want to let someone know that I don't know how to do this thing, because it's going to show some weakness. Well, for me, I will say a stupid question is one that you have but you don't ask. Right? So being in a position where you need help and you don't ask for the help. One idea is, if you're in a situation, and I know a lot of these teams, they will have group calls and meetings and things like that. One is you can go directly to your upline, someone who is in a more senior position than you, and solicit their assistance. The other thing is, you could just publicly, again, it's putting yourself out there, and I know there's a fear of rejection, but publicly, whether it's via some text message or a voice memo or just asking openly on a call, and let them know that you're new or you're struggling and you're looking for some assistance. And if there's anyone out there either going through the same thing as you, and there may be others, or someone who's in a senior position who has gone through it and could provide you, just to ask for that help, just put it out there. And I am quite sure there will be one or more person who either is going through the same thing, who can connect up with you, and now you can help each other, or there's someone who's gone through it, who's willing to give back, who will share that with you. So I would say, I understand again the uncomfortable feeling, but it's not life and death.
Right.
It isn't. And when you realize that the worst thing that can happen is someone doesn't respond, okay, we move on. We try something else.
So I think, a critical part of support is having resources that you can, return to. How do things like IC Academy or Trafnax play a role in long-term development?
Like anything that you are trying to become proficient and you're trying to become the best that you can be, you do need, I'll call it knowledge acquisition. So there are things that you need to learn. So the consumption of information, and then be able to apply that into some meaningful way. It's fundamental and it's important. The other thing is the skills, the development of skills, which is for me different from knowledge acquisition. And developing a skill, communication, whether it is listening, whether it's speaking, those are the things that you will need to practice, right? So having solutions like IC Academy, which is a learning platform that allows you to consume information and with that knowledge. But then Trafnax, which is the practice, the batting cage idea where you can practice making calls, these simulated calls. That's honing the skills. You need them. You know, I think about some of the greats, whether in terms of sports, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, you talk about Usain Bolt. Those individuals know how to do what they were skilled at and became professionals in, but they continued to practice. They continued to practice to not only elevate, but also to ensure that they did not regress. So I think it's critically important to have tools and not only the tools and services, but also the human, the community, the mentors to be able to lean on.
This career, you know, it can be rewarding, but it can also be surely overwhelming at times. When someone hits, you know, a rough week or a rough month, how can community make the difference between giving up and, you know, really pushing through?
It is huge. I go back to the example that I mentioned. I was not an elite 400-meter runner, right? I was decent. The last 100 meters of that race, your mind is telling you to stop. You're begging for the finishing line to come as quickly as possible. There were huge differences in how I felt as well as my performance when there were individuals in the stands cheering versus not cheering. So you ask about that. If the community is not there and it's all on you, it's very difficult for you. You're going to feel lonely. You're going to at times potentially feel just depressed about it, question whether or not you can continue. If you have community one, you know, they will be able to provide some level of support, right? They can listen. There is an individual, Simon Sinek, where he has this, you know, at times you need a friend who will just sit in the mud with you, someone who will sit and hear and be empathetic and understand what you're going through. But you also, that community, in addition to that, will also say, okay, got it. We've addressed it. Let's now figure out how to move forward.
Right.
And the community, you have varying persons who have different perspectives who can then help you get through that. So I think it's critically important to be able to lean on the community.
As we wrap up this entire series, what's the final encouragement that you would offer someone who's still early in their journey and trying to decide whether this career is truly for them? Before you make a decision on whether or not you're going to give up or not, you know, there's one thing that I share with persons who are on my team is just give it your best effort. Right? Commit to some amount of time and implement the things that we've talked about: mindset, this whole idea of community. You're practicing, you're exposing yourself, you're defining systems and processes, and you're using tools. And give yourself a certain amount of time, but you also need to hold yourself accountable to make sure that you're doing the things that you say you were going to do. And if you have done that and given your best effort and it just didn't materialize then you can feel comfortable that, okay, this may not be the right thing for me. Because I will tell you, this industry, I do see a tremendous amount of financial success that is possible. It's not something that excites me in terms of the art selling. And I'm a technologist, and I love to build solutions to help empower others so that they can be their best selves. I love solving technical problems. I love creating solutions that are unique and new and novel. That's my space. But there are others who are excellent at this and can find a tremendous career in it as well. Yeah.
Yeah. But let me just say before we wind up, I'd love to just have a 1 minute and just to share with you my gratitude for this journey, this experience. When we started, we did not know what this thing was going to turn out, how it was going to turn out, what it was going to be like. And for me, it's been a tremendous pleasure.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot about this experience and just how we've been working it and fine-tuning it. And I owe a lot of that to you for the preparation and all that we've done. So thank you for that.
Yeah, of course. I think that this has been wonderful. It's taught me a lot about the art of podcasting. So I think that it's been really great. So with all of that being said, I think that that was the perfect way to end. Remember that you don't have to do this alone. Growth happens in community, and success comes from consistency, support, and a willingness to keep learning. Whether you choose to stay in this career or discover that something else is right for you, we hope that this series gave you clarity, direction, and confidence. And if you are continuing this path, remember, you have the tools, you have the people, and you have the community that wants to see you win. Thank you for joining us on this journey. It can be done, but not by everyone, and we will see you next time.